So I just wanted to go over what a potential Batman horror film could look like, as I think the IP is really the perfect fit for this genre. And I wanted to do this by offering 10 reasons for why this would be an interesting development. So, starting with the first one, I really think that a Batman horror film would be realistic to Gotham, as we do know that it obviously isn't a very nice place. The second reason would really be because I think Batman is just naturally meant to be terrifying. I think we've seen this in a lot of the darker comics, and I really think that seeing him from a third person perspective could really allow for an anticipated experience. A third point here, I think a horror film for Batman would really offer a unique perspective. Looking at a lot of the other films and works that we've gotten already in terms of media, not necessarily the comics or other stories, is that while you have gotten glimpses of the little more terror in this world, I don't really think you've gotten a full-fledged horror movie. So I think that this could make this project a little bit more niche, and I think it could also even offer a unique perspective on Batman, let alone the style of the film, because I think really dehumanizing him and making him much more of a monster in this could give you the full-fledged experience of what encountering Batman is like for a criminal, rather than the movie feeling like a biography for his life. The fourth point here, I think this would really speak to the level of interest for Batman right now. There's definitely the potential to have a Batman film every year. You're even seeing the consideration now for two Batmans going simultaneously. So I think if that's possible, you could obviously do several Batman films, even outside a lot of these different timelines or continuities. So I really think that this could just be a spin-off project to where it's not connected to anything else, but really just the idea behind the film and the overall understanding of the IP itself could really just be enough to solidify this. And a fifth point for this here, I really think for this specific project, you wouldn't even really need to cast a specific actor to play Batman. I think it could just be a combination of stunt people. And I really think taking the Bruce Wayne aspect out of it could add to the more horror-like element, because you're not really too familiar with who's behind the mask. And I think this would relate really closely to the sixth point here, which is that it would really make Batman a lot more mysterious. I think if you don't have as much of a development on the other half of him, I think would allow a lot more ambiguity for his portrayals. And I think if you aren't following him as much, you're really going to wonder when he's going to appear. The seventh point here, I think this would also allow the opportunity for a much more fantastical universe. Since we've already gotten the Bale version of Batman, which I think is probably the best version, if not one of the best, but you're also getting a more grounded style with the Reeves verse. I really don't think you've gotten as much on the fantastical side of Batman. Maybe you saw a little bit more of that with Ben Affleck, but I wouldn't say you really had a sole focus on a Batman film, since Affleck's was always part of something else, whether it was Superman or Suicide Squad or the Justice League. But I think having a Batman that's a lot more supernatural in terms of his overall strength and abilities, and not just him, but the world around him with Gotham and a lot of the more fantastical villains, I think could really make this an impressive film. And similar to this, the eighth point here would be the villains. I think the villains are a perfect suit for a horror genre. I think whether we're looking at some of the lesser known villains from the comics or obviously a lot of the famous rogues gallery for Batman, I think portraying them in a full horror light could really be an interesting adaptation. I think we got maybe some of this in the Penguin, but I would say a lot of the Penguin is a little bit more focused on the character development of Oz and Sophia, even though you have little sprinkles of action sprung in there. But I really think less of a focus on any one villain, but just having a lot of them present in Gotham and having them in a lot more of a fantastical or darker tone could really add to the style of what this would look like. And number 9 here, I think this would really offer a new experience for watching a Batman film. I think there's definitely a lot of intrigue already, but really seeing this through the edge of your seat, like with the average horror experience, I think could really make this a fun movie, not necessarily in a literal fashion, but more in the form of the energy that the atmosphere for this would tap into. So I think if you were really just wondering when the next time that Batman's going to pop up out of nowhere and offer a jump scare, or when a certain villain is going to do this as well. And the last point here, I think the main point of this would just be for a really aesthetically pleasing Batman movie. I think the cinematography here would really be what sells this, because you obviously wouldn't be focusing on the storytelling, since that has been done effectively already, and you of course already know the story of Batman. I don't really think you would need to focus on that. I think that this movie could ultimately just be successful by looking unique and really creating the visual appearance of what a larger than life horrifying Batman could look like. But feel free to let me know your thoughts on this, or what you think would be neat about a Batman horror film, and I'll see you later.